Before we get started, we got to talk to you about something. Well, it's not a secret. It's what's near and dear to our hearts. It is that love of the moving image. It is the love of film. It is the love of cinema and watching as much of it as we possibly can from all the corners of the world. Because I mean, really, that's kind of what we're here for as film fans and film lovers and film goers and film experiencers, as it were, which means that well, I got to recommend something to you because there is a streaming service that I personally love. I think it's one of the better ones out there, especially if you're looking for some cinema that maybe is a little off the beaten track, but it's got a that maybe some you want some world cinema, you want some documentaries, you want sort of a wide variety of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily get anywhere else. And you know what? It's all in one place. It's all at filmmovementplus.com, which, at least from my perspective, is probably one of the better streaming services out there for film lovers. And this month in July, they've got a lot of really interesting stuff. They have new stuff coming every week, and again, it's one of those services that I can't recommend enough because they had one that just launched called Volcano, which is a really sort of interesting sort of family story that goes back and forth. It's set in the Ukraine, and it was a festival favorite all across the world. And it's a film that you're not gonna see in most places, but when you sit down and you experience it, it's a special thing. And there's films like well, there's actually some Olympic films coming up on the service in the next couple of weeks, sort of in time with the Summer Olympics starting up, and it's a film called Over the Limit. It's a documentary just about how the Russian system for training athletes will kind of push boundaries and sort of, I don't know, stretch the rules and really take things to some really sort of extremes. It's one of those modern sports docs that really is akin to something like a 30 for 30 or something you would see on ESPN, and it's really a fantastic sort of look inside uh, the Olympic system and sort of its beauty, but also its corruption at the same time. It's a great look, and it's starting on Film Movement Plus later this month. But there's that. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. There's a 4K restoration of one of the best Mexican films of all time called Espaldas Mojados, aka Wetbacks. Again, if you want to check out some Mexican cinema, and I mean, again, even as a fan, I did not know how rich the Mexican cinema scene really is. And I mean, there is so much out there just to really experience and watch, and there's some great stuff. There's also the premiere of a really fun film that played at Cannes a little while back called Caro Diaria, which Film Movement has on DVD and Blu-ray as well if you want to pick that up. But again, it's a self-reflective comedy that's a lot of fun, and there's just, again, there is such a wide-ranging variety of interesting foreign stuff, documentaries, sports documentaries. There's a boxing documentary as well in correlation with the Summer Olympics called Hands of God, which is coming to the service soon as well, which, again, I've seen and it's fantastic. But it's one of those things where if you love film, I really think you should check out filmmovementplus.com. And because you're a listener of the show and you love film just as much as we do, we've got something special for you, because when you go to filmmovementplus.com and sign up for a scant $5.99, which is basically the price of a coffee, well, a fully loaded coffee anyway over at Starbucks, but not only do you get free 30 days to try it out, but if you sign up with the promo code SEATS, you get 50% off for the first 3 months after that, which really it's a steal. If you love cinema and you want to check out some really interesting foreign cinema from all across the world, not only here, but from basically any country you can think of, sign up, go to filmmovementplus.com for a scant $5.99, and please enjoy it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
Breaking free of those small town expectations is never easy. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I am the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain about state of the industry, current projects, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm assuming that you do, you can subscribe to the podcast. You can find us over at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, basically wherever you find your podcasts. Plus, if you can give us a like and subscribe over at our YouTube channel where we archive all of our episodes, that would be great too. Also, you can find us on social media at either Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, at either in the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of updates. And plus, we're on the TikTok, but if only for some fun. And also, finally, it's the most important thing. I say this a lot, but it's true. Please come pay us a visit over at In the Seats. InTheSeats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image as a whole. Because we love writing about it and talking about it, and we love it when you come read about it. Oh, we got a good one for you on this episode. It is in virtual cinemas now. And or cinemas, depending on where you are. It has been bouncing around the festival circuit for quite some time, and then, there was a pandemic that got in the way. But it is a brilliant new Canadian film called Black Conflux, which, like I said, is playing virtual cinemas near you. Check your local listings, and it is really a powerful piece of Canadian cinema because it's the story of two separate people living seemingly separate lives, sort of in 1980s Newfoundland, and one is this anxious, disillusioned teenage girl, and another is a troubled, alienated man who can't seem to fit in. Neither one of them can fit in anywhere, and it's really this fascinating exploration of sort of the trials and tribulations of not only womanhood but isolation, and also sort of toxic masculinity and sort of the expectation of all of those things that get thrust onto people and how they can really be hard to deal with in so many different ways. And it's from writer-director Nicole Dorsey, who just made an absolute hell of a film. But we had the distinct pleasure of sitting down with stars Ella Ballentine and Ryan McDonald, who play our two diverging characters in this film, and they both do such a fantastic job in really creating this sort of intense portrait of a small town life and how it can be and the difficulties therein. And it's an amazing watch, and it's one of those fantastic examples of Canadian cinema that we have out there in the world that you really need to go and support, because it is a fantastic film from fantastic actors and fantastic filmmakers. But enjoy our talk with Ella and Ryan, because I know that I did. It's a real good one. All right. Well, obviously, Ella, Ryan, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate this.
Thanks for having us.
Now, I guess my first question is for both of you. Obviously, I got to see this back at TIFF in 2019, in the before days, as I like to call them. But walk me through, I guess, Nicole, sort of, you getting the script and Nicole bringing you on board to the story.
Ryan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I got the script like anything else, kind of like just a standard audition. But I read the script. I felt really strongly about the character and just the feel and the tone of it right away. It struck me as kind of a type of a character that I wanted to explore in the right way that I'd wanted to do it. So then I sent in a tape, and then I met with Nicole over Zoom, and we talked about some things. We talked about the character. We talked about true crime. We talked about film. I think we were just both very impressed with each other's thoughtfulness regarding a story like this. And it developed quickly from there, thankfully.
Excellent.
A lot of wait or delay.
Ella, how about?
And for me, well, I was the same. It was just like a normal audition, But right from my first call for it, I only had a few scenes that I got to read, but it really stood out to me right away. I think because throughout my young actor career, I've always played a little girl, and it's often horror and thriller. So I'm very used to this genre of suspense, but not this type of character where it also has a coming of age plotline to it. So that really appealed to me. But just from the scenes alone, how it was written felt really natural. Sometimes I get auditions where it doesn't sound like me, like it's a very different character, and it takes a lot of effort to dissolve into that specific role. But for Jackie, like I just felt like her right away. I felt like I understood her and understood her motive in every scene that I read. And then when I got the full script for it, I mean, I couldn't put it down, and that's always a good sign. But it was every scene I was in love with. And I felt like every scene with her relationship with her aunt and with her friend and with Donovan, it was all something I could relate to from each moment, and any conflict she had experienced in the small moment we get to see Jackie,
For sure.
I thought was really important. And I just loved it so much.
No, well, you both do fantastic work in this film. And I mean, Ryan, I'm really curious just in terms of your character, because we're empathetic towards him, but we're still unsure of him. He's not a hero. He's not a villain. He's in that sort of weird sort of space in between. Can you walk me through just sort of how you really sort of found the headspace of being somebody empathetic, but still very sort of, you had to portray someone you weren't very sure of at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I was sure of him. I mean, my empathy for him never wavered. So that's where it begins. And I knew that this wasn't going to be a film that was going to make his dark side sexy or cool. It wasn't going to make the scenario or the, you know, the sort of like potentialities lurid. This is going to be a real character study, and it was when you were with both of these characters, you were going to feel really intimately close to them. So I took a lot of things that I had learned from, you know, playing psychologically complicated and angry men before, and some examples from my own life. And there were feelings in Dennis that I could relate to. It was just simply a matter of trying to imagine the worst, furthest end point of those and where they could go if they were unchecked, if somebody was alone with them in a culture that didn't know how to talk about them or didn't have a place for somebody to release those safely. Yeah, so there was a lot of imagination, but maybe not so much as when you're playing like Ella was saying. I mean, I've done some horror too and things like that. I never really felt in this like I was playing any kind of villain, which you're never supposed to do anyways. You know, you're supposed to always be like a kind of a believer in what your character's cause, whatever it is, because that's how they feel. But I never felt like there had to be a layer on top of that where I was playing like a cinematic archetype or something. It's just the guy, Dennis, this basement dweller.
No, I mean, Ella, for your character, I think something that really fascinated me was because she's obviously this young woman who is sort of tacitly accepting sort of the universe that's around her, but she doesn't necessarily want to, and she feels sort of awkward in it. And like, how did you sort of find that headspace to sort of embrace sort of the teenage trope, but not sort of be a part of it at the same time?
Well, I thought it was very easy because I think it's what most young women deal with. I think if you ask any teenage girl if they want to be living in the world they're living in right now, I think they'd say not exactly, probably not, because there were all of these different societal pressures put on her. I mean, there was the plot line of her and her mom not having a good relationship. And then there's also the up in the air question of where's her dad. There's a lot of teens that have family issues when they're growing up. But I think her issues with her friend Amber, I mean, Amber is already, thinks she's ready to be sexually empowered, whatever that could mean. And I think if you look at the world today, especially, there's a lot of emphasis on young women being sexually liberated. And that can be really difficult. And I think Jackie was really mature for her age to already be questioning what that even means and if she's ready for that. But then you have a character like Donovan come in, and he kind of represents what she wants. Like at this time when we see her, she just wants somebody to call her pretty. She wants somebody to connect with. And I love her relationship with him because in the beginning, he is wonderful. He's a good friend to her. But his plotline goes into what society puts on young men and how they're forced to behave. And so we get to see how Jackie reflects on that and her reaction to that. And that was actually like a huge part on why I wanted to play this role so badly, because I've seen that plot specifically play out with myself and with my friends countless times, where you have young men who feel forced to push women into things they're not ready to be doing. And as a young woman, you're looking at this and you don't know exactly what's wrong. I think like seeing Jackie in that moment, she doesn't even understand what just happened and her feelings about it. So it was just fun to explore. Sorry, let me rephrase this.
No, please.
I'm like going like everywhere right now. But it was fun to explore the moment that we see Jackie, where she's questioning so much going on in her life at that very moment. It was fun to see how she plays with it and how she goes back and forth, and she's really human. She's not like most teenage girls that you see on screen now, where they can be portrayed as quite two-dimensional, or, you know, there's a specific archetype for a lot of teenage girls in TV and film where they're either really spunky and go get them and get what they want, or they're very dorky and they stay with that. Jackie, like, she's just human. Nothing's right or wrong with her. So it just felt really real. It felt easy to play her because she felt very real.
Well, and I mean, that really comes through with the interaction with Jackie and her friends, because I mean, you can tell in your performance, like Jackie wants to be asking questions and talk about the things that are doubting her, but she can't because everyone else around her is talking something else. But then she has her what the fuck moment, and she feels empowered to go, no, seriously, what the fuck? That's not cool. I'm getting out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a fantastic moment to see.
Yeah, I mean, that scene specifically was really fun because I thought Olivia played it so well.
Yeah.
Because Amber, I love the character Amber. She reminds me so much of the blonde in American Beauty.
Right.
I forget that character's name, but you can tell she's covering up her vulnerability through being something she's completely not, and it's so obvious. And I thought Olivia played it so well. And that scene with Jackie and Amber, where they finally release their tension, was just so fun to play off of.
Now, I mean, speaking of releasing tension and having a scene that sort of shows, highlights vulnerability, I've got to ask you, Ryan, about the dance scene. Just because I've got to imagine that was a hell of a lot of fun to play. Like, can you walk me through just sort of getting into the right mindset of just like throwing yourself into that moment?
A lot of dancing alone, a lot of dancing in the mirror. I don't know. I had ideas about what it would be or what I thought I would do and all those things. And it was scenes like that. Every once in a while in a project, you get a scene like that sort of like looms on the call sheet.
Right.
It's coming, and you're thinking about it, but you don't want to think about it because you want to stay rooted in what you're doing in the moment and not try and plan too much. And, the way we shot that, I would say, was the most miraculous aspect because it was one take, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the entire moment before build up this ride of what I'm feeling and where I'm going, and kind of finding my way in there and finding my way to the music and onto the dance floor and feeling like what I wanted to do. And I mean, the dancing at the end and the doing of it, the dancing itself was the simplest part. Because it's not like I turned into Travolta out there. I'm moving the way normal people move,
Right.
and I want to be normal, and I want to get something out and feel good for 10 minutes,
Yeah.
And there's anger in there, but there's also, it's probably the closest until when I'm talking to myself at the end, that Dennis comes to like an emotional,
Right.
which is what he needs. He needs to have a volcano, right?
Yeah.
He's a lot built up in there. So it was fun doing that thing over and over and over again, man. I could have done it 10 more times. I don't remember how many times we went through it. And it was so, because, there would be like technical things. I think there were a couple takes where we got right to the dance, and then there was like a light thing and everything stopped. It's like, you got to go all the way back and like, okay, let's do it this time. Let's get there. I loved it. That's the funnest thing for me as an actor, when you can play scenes like that are not so, moments. They're long. It's like theater. Things connect to themselves, and it's almost like its own little story. And you get to do it over and over again, get a little bit deeper, try a little bit different things, find different little moments along the way. Man, it was so fun. And we had a different song, as Nicole has talked about, a Pet Shop Boys song, a great Pet Shop Boys song, that I was preparing with, not that I was going to have some amazing routine worked out when we got there, but when I heard that this song was and that's what we shot with.
Right.
But then when I heard that we went to the Gowan song, Moonlight Desires, which is a song that I already loved, but then I thought about it in that context, and I just got goosebumps. I mean, it's just a beautiful, perfect song for that time and place, obviously, but just the feeling of that moment, that feeling of the film, it came together pretty nice.
And it's a Canadian film. We got to represent. We got to put Gowan up there, man. Come on.
Have Larry Gowan. Gowan sounds so exotic, and then you look him up, and it's Larry Gowan, and you're like, oh, he owns a convenience store.
Now, I mean, I've got to ask you both about sort of the climactic scene, because in the entire film, you only share one scene together. But I mean, it's obviously such a huge scene. I'm curious, did Nicole keep you guys apart for the entire process and then bring you together? Or how did it all come about? Because there's such great energy in that scene.
Yeah.
Well, we shot the movie with Jackie's storyline and then Dennis's storyline. So we really did meet at like the halfway point.
Oh, so we met in the middle. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, and we did only have one day of shooting together, which was really nerve-wracking. I think that was my call sheet day that I was nervous for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's not necessarily an exciting scene to do. But it was also, there was just so much uncertainty with, Ryan. I didn't know how Ryan was going to be with me. But then also shooting it, we shot alternate endings. So there was a lot to play with that day. But I think right from the beginning of the day, Ryan set the tone in a really good way where I just felt very comfortable to try anything. Honestly, I think working with male actors, the tone is set right from the get-go. And as a young woman, I don't want to push anything. And then especially because we had this scene to do, I was really, really nervous. But Ryan got in contact with me, I think indirectly, I think through Nicole, and it was via email to do, what was it, a 3-minute or a 5-minute?
I think it's only 2 minutes.
2-minute hug.
Yeah. Okay.
Before we did anything, which Ryan can talk more about, but I don't know if it actually worked or if it was his effort to make each other comfortable to work with one another and do some really intense work for just one day and then bye, see you later. But it meant a lot to me and it made me feel like really ready to do the day. And I think we did a good job.
Yeah, it was a friend of mine because I was away. It was Ella's last couple days of shooting. It was my first 2 days of shooting. We were shooting the end of the film and all of what that could be, the alternate scenes and all of it, all the stuff, me in the car improvising, my breakdown and the ride there. So it was uh, big pressure to step into, and I was really aware of working in such a way with younger female who I really didn't know yet. And I was talking to a friend of mine about what I could do to so that she felt safe around me. And it was suggested this exercise. It's like a theater thing. It's supervised. Nicole was there watching and timing it. And I think it's maybe two, it might be three or four, I'm not sure. But basically, you just embrace somebody. And the idea is that, after 2 minutes or so, your heartbeats and your breath will actually start to sync up. And all it was the best idea I had for letting Ella and even other people on set know that I wasn't taking this lightly, and this was I was going to respect whatever was going to happen on those 2 days.
And I mean, the scene is such a unique convergence because, I mean, Ella, your character is having this moment of clarity and sort of she's, moving forward. But while your character, Ryan, is having this sort of emotional explosion, whilst that could still be very much realized as a moment of clarity. And it's seeing the collision of those two energies was really sort of electric on screen. I think you guys did a fantastic job of sort of managing that and sort of really creating something tense but beautiful all at the same time.
Yeah, there's an element of danger there still, right? Because clarity can mean different things to different people.
For sure, yeah.
And you don't. I love that moment. I love the ending that was used because you walk away from that feeling like, well, okay, Dennis and Jack, they connected in that moment, but you really don't know what's going to happen from there. You don't know what kind of person Dennis is. Like, how will that impact him? What will that mean to him? What will that mean to her? For the moment they're safe, the moment they hear each other. Most importantly, I guess he hears her, and there is clarity there, but it's still a question mark there.
No, for sure. And I mean, just to change the tone a little bit, this is a dumb question, but I always like to ask it. Thinking back to both of your lives, is there like a piece of work or sort of a movie in your life that was the pivot point you made me want to say, okay, I want to go be an actor, I want to be a storyteller?
Should I go first?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, this is going way back, but it's just the obvious one. When I was a young actor, I'd only been working professionally for a couple years at that point. I was still living in my parents' house, going to theater school. I booked a film called The Ballad of Jack and Rose. It was an American independent film that shot in Prince Edward Island. Rebecca Miller wrote and directed it, Arthur Miller's daughter, and it starred her husband, Daniel Day-Lewis, and a number of other amazing actors, Paul Dano, Jenna Malone, Jason Lee, Catherine Keener. And I was just about as fresh and green as can be, but I found myself in this like stunning ensemble film, this beautiful, weird drama, acting with people that obviously I'd only ever seen in movie theaters. And I mean like super high caliber people that I'd seen in movie theaters. So that I already knew at that point that I really, really wanted to be a serious actor. I grew up, idolizing the early P.T. Anderson films. I love Philip Seymour Hoffman. I love that whole crew of actors that he worked with initially. Julianne Moore, Don Cheadle, all these people. So I already knew it, but of course, to have that kind of really early, sudden, shocking confirmation that you do belong in that world really sent me down a different road.
Getting getting paid to sit at the learning tree must must have been a unique experience.
Absolutely, it was an incredible summer.
Yeah. And Ella, what about you?
Well, when I was really young, I started watching movie musicals, and that was my big light bulb of wanting to perform in that way. But I think what set the spark for me with film specifically, there were quite a few, but what comes to mind honestly was in Love Actually. Emma Thompson has the scene where Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now is playing, and it's just 2 minutes of Emma Thompson alone in a bedroom crying and having to pull herself together, and she just did it so perfectly. And I just remember feeling like that's what acting is, like that there couldn't be anything more perfect than that. And yeah, that's what comes to my mind right now. And
Well, you
because
know
still,
what?
every time I watch that, I get goosebumps.
It's a great scene, and you know what? Thank you both for the work, because I mean, I really think the magic of Black Conflux is that it shows the issue of toxicity from both sides of the coin, and it's really, I think it's an important piece of work, and it's a fantastic, it's a beautiful film, and it's a thrilling film, and congratulations both on the work, and thank you both for the time today.
Thank
Thank
you, man. That was
you.
great. Thank you for supporting it.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.